Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for 5 critical requirements for Salesforce backup and success. I'm Mike Samboy. I'm the head of marketing for AutoRABIT, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. In this webinar, you're going to learn the 5 must-have capabilities for your Salesforce backup and recovery solution, why they're important, and what you can lose if you don't have them. Just a little housekeeping. We encourage you to ask questions during the session by clicking on the Q&A button in the Zoom webinar toolbar. You click on the Q&A button, type in your questions anytime, and then we will go ahead and answer those at the end of the session. And to introduce you to our speakers today, joining us we have Dean Oms. Dean is our VP of Strategy and Product at AutoRABIT, and Vignesh Ravi. Vignesh is a solutions architect for AutoRABIT. Dean's going to go ahead and walk us through the 5 must-haves for backup and restoring your Salesforce data. Then Vignesh is going to give us go live and give us a demo showing some of the use cases related to those 5 must-have capabilities. And then finally, like I mentioned, we're going to open it up for a Q&A session. So please go ahead and type in your questions as you think of them. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dean.
Great. Thank you, Mike, and welcome, everyone. I thought I'd start out with a quick overview of AutoRABIT for those of you not familiar with us. We have made our name in the DevOps arena for Salesforce, and we're the leading release management platform for Salesforce DevOps. As you can see below the line there, we have several big brands that we are working with. There are many other customers that we're also working with today, and those companies have trusted their mission critical applications with AutoRABIT in terms of the DevOps process. We are a gold partner with Salesforce, and we have also a recent winner of the Demo Jam where our product stood out above others in terms of its overall capability. When you think about DevOps and how the backup and recovery solution fits into the overall equation, if we first start out with the continuous loop for DevOps, there's 7 stages that we've identified and labeled, and many companies have a similar perspective on this. Sometimes they have different labels, but we've gone with these particular labels. And our core product is automated release management for Salesforce DevOps, and it covers 4 stages, stage 2, 3, 4, and 5, with a little bit of overlap in stage 1 because we are integrated with products like Jira. And we combine a number of tools to facilitate the flow of code and data through those environments. Now with backup and recovery, what we've done is entered into stage 6 of the overall process where you're operating your code in production, and the need for backup and recovery becomes apparent. What we have done is taking a lot of the key learning from the DevOps arena and stage 2 through 5, where we continuously have to migrate data and code between multiple environments and keep all of that data and code in sync. We do the same thing now for production in terms of making sure your backup data and production data can stay in sync in the event of a disaster or a small event that you have to recover from. So let's talk about the 5 success factors around backup and recovery. Number 1, system compliance. And when you think about compliance, there's obviously the regulatory compliance that everyone is worried about, and certain industries have more stricter requirements than others, financial services, healthcare, just to name a couple, but certainly other industries have their own requirements that they need to step up to. And certainly a backup and recovery tool needs to address all of those points. But in addition to that, there's digital compliance. The fact that companies are always on 24/7, and that's the way they interface with customers. Being down for an hour, 5 hours, 10 hours, or whatever the case may be, is simply unacceptable in today's world. And I think we had a flavor of that over the past weekend when Target had a major issue in all their stores and all their registers were down for a number of hours. And the total cost is estimated to be over $50 million to Target as a result of that. So these are just examples of, you know, how important it is to be compliant and stay, keep your systems up and running, and if they do go down, bring them back up as soon as possible. If we look at alternative approaches to backup and recovery, Salesforce itself will tell you on their website that you should not really look to their backup solution as your disaster recovery solution. It is a system of last resort, and they'll be the first ones to raise their hand and say, don't look to us for meeting your compliance needs around disaster recovery or backup and recovery needs. And then there's a number of legacy vendors out there that also have been doing database backup and recovery for quite some time, application backup and recovery. The challenge with them is most of them are completely unaware of metadata and unique challenges with that. So that takes many of those particular providers out of the equation as well. So you really have to be careful in terms of who you turn to for meeting your compliance needs around backup and recovery. The second major area that we want to talk about is having flexible backup options. So what we mean by that is, as I mentioned earlier, every industry has their own requirements. Your company may have additional requirements. So you need as much flexibility in terms of how that data is backed up. And what we offer at AutoRABIT, and certainly what you should have on your checklist as you evaluate solutions, is being able to do frequent auto backups. So I believe Salesforce is on a 1 week or 2 week cycle. Some companies need to back up their data on a much more frequent basis, every 10 minutes or every couple of hours or whatever the case may be. And so that level of frequency is something that you need to set and manage yourself. We also provide Delta data backups. So rather than the entire database, we can allow you to be very selective about the data that you back up. And then also, obviously, we can provide full data backup capability. So in addition to those options in terms of, the frequency of data that you want to back up and the amount of data that you want to back up, we also offer options in terms of our standard backup capabilities, encrypted storage. But more and more companies are now asking for the ability to take that data and put it into data lakes so they can use it operationally for analytics. And so that is maybe another requirement that you may have as well. Another category of backup options would be around, do you want to store it in the public cloud, or do you want to have it in a private cloud, or do you want to have that backup on premise? And once again, based on your industry, based on your company requirements, et cetera, you need to be able to select that, and this is something that our solution can provide for. The bottom line, these are kind of checklist items in your that you would want to look at as you approach various vendors on seeking out a backup and recovery solution. Okay. One of the points around, how do I determine how often do I back up data? And once again, this is a pretty renowned view of how to look at backup and recovery. There's two major objectives: recovery point objective, and then recovery time objective. So the recovery point objective helps you determine how much time do you want to pass before you actually do a backup and recovery. And for some companies, some industries that are literally processing thousands upon thousands of transactions a minute, that time frame needs to be very short so you can recover quickly. For other companies that their transaction volume may be much less, then of course you can make your time period a lot longer in duration. And obviously there's consultants out there that can help you determine what is the optimal time for you to provide that recovery toward objective. But that's all about the backup piece of the equation. The recovery time objective is more on the recovery side. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay. So talked about system compliance, talked about flexible backup options. The third critical success factor is clean and swift recovery. And so what we mean by that is you're going to have both minor events, someone either unintentionally or intentionally corrupted an account or multiple accounts. And so those would be minor events that you need to recover from. And then you're going to have major events. The thing that Target experienced not too long ago over the weekend, and where you've got to really, take major steps to get back online and get recovery underway. So a couple of the features you ought to be looking for in solution is the ability to do data comparison. So what does the production environment look like compared to your backup data, so you can quickly determine where you need to go to get back online with the most relevant and correct data. And then also having the ability to do selective recovery. You want to be able to pinpoint the account or two that may have been corrupted in a minor event and just bring those back up to par and bring those up to speed in terms of where it should be from your production environment. And so that's selective recovery capability, and Vignesh will show you a little bit about how we do that. When it comes to a major event or whatever the other types of events, you need to know that you have unlimited depth recovery, and this is related to Salesforce and how you have to deal with the metadata involved with that, and all of the dependencies, et cetera, involved with managing Salesforce specific data. And through the processes that we enabled through our metadata mastery, we're able to ensure data recovery in the event that you have a major event out there that requires a significant recovery process. And I'll point out once again, because we manage data in the DevOps environment, and that we are continuously improving the DevOps environment space, and we have to basically move data and metadata between your integration environment to your test environment to your various user acceptance testing environments, and that has to be a clean migration between those environments. We have become experts in moving data between these systems. So now, when we're moving data between your backup environment and your production environment, you can rest assured that that is a proven and tested solution. Going back to the two major objectives in backup and recovery, we already talked about the recovery point objective, but the recovery time objective is all about how fast can you, once you've discovered disruptive events, how fast can you recover from that? And certainly, we have made investments in making sure that that recovery is clean and swift, as well as it takes into account what we need to deal with from Salesforce and metadata associated with that. And that's the next major point is metadata synchronization recovery, and that's what I'll talk about next. And one of the key features of our solution is one-click recovery. So when you run across a minor or even a major event and you need to get your production data back live and with integrity, the fact that you can basically hit one button that will bring your data and metadata in sync with each other to get you back online is a huge feature that I think you should be looking for in your solution. This prevents you from having to coordinate that yourself manually, that we behind the scenes are doing the match to make sure that whatever changes that took place to the metadata or data over a period of time is brought back in sync so you can make that happen. So that is a significant call out and a feature that we wanted to make sure you paid attention to as you look at and evaluate solutions out there, the ability to synchronize this. Once again, your traditional legacy types of backup and recovery solutions will not have this capability. And then the fifth major success factor that I wanted to talk about was seeding the test environment. And what we want to take advantage of there is the fact that you have captured this data, production data, throughout time. Wouldn't it be great if you could use this same data in your test environments? If this is real life cases out there. So if you can pull that into your QA environments and use it for various testing purposes, that's obviously a big advantage that you can get out of this backup and recovery solution. But obviously, if you're pulling production data into QA, you need to be very careful about the privacy and the security around that data. So we provide privacy masking capabilities so that you can make sure that developers and testers don't have access to sensitive data, that your compliance or just your basic need to protect your customer's privacy isn't violated. And so this privacy masking capability is something Vignesh will show you as well in the demo. But once again, you're having to invest in building out a backup and recovery solution. The fact that you can leverage this now for testing maybe takes some of the pain away from that big investment in insurance that something doesn't go wrong down the line. So that's what what you can take advantage of with the backup and recovery solution here. So those are the 5 key success factors, and we in product have taken special attention to make sure we can cover all of those bases, and we continue to add more features, more capabilities to our timeline. But we do have a very robust Salesforce backup and recovery solution that you can take a look at today. So with that, I'll pause here for a second and see if there's any questions that we need to clarify before we jump into the demo. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to Vignesh. Are we okay, Mike?
Yeah, and just one question, Vignesh, while you're setting up, one question did pop in. How frequently can we back up on our production orders? So I guess the question is, what's the smallest interval of time that they can do?
Sure. So with Vault, you can back up as frequently as once every 5 minutes, and you can also do a monthly schedule, but the maximum frequency that you can take advantage is a backup every 5 minutes.
Got it. Thank you. And please keep the questions coming in. Click on the Q&A button and type in your questions. We'll be sure to get all of them.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dee. Hi, everyone. Vignesh here. I'm a solutions architect with AutoRABIT here. And I'm going to be taking probably 15 or 20 minutes of your time here to show you a quick overview of what Vault has with respect to its product capabilities, and also, point out to the 5 features that Dee just talked about. So we're going to see how, Vault as an application deals with compliance requirements. How does it, help with flexible backups, synchronized recovery, also a swift recovery process in that, and finally we'll see how seeding is also done within the solution. So when you look at Vault from a high level, from a bird's eye view, let's say, what it does is it's a comprehensive data and metadata backup and recovery solution, and it simplifies the data backup challenges, including disaster recovery, and also provides the endpoint protection for Salesforce users. So what I mean by that is it helps you store data, or rather encrypt the data in the storage devices, and you can take advantage of those backups for recovery purposes. So I'll go ahead and start off with the demonstration here. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, like Mike said, you have the Q&A box. So let's start off with the most basic need, right? Let's start off with system compliance. So you're taking advantage of a solution like Vault, but the very first question that comes to mind is we're dealing with data. How does it make sure that all the system compliance are being dealt with? We're just not just talking about regulatory compliances like SPIA, HIPAA. We're also talking about digital compliance, let's say an organization is dealing with lots of emails, and maybe there's an in-house organization policy that doesn't let the organization have the emails longer than 6 months. Maybe emails that are older than 6 months need to be backed up to a specific storage location. That's one of the in-house policies, but the most common ones are, the ones they find in financial and healthcare industries. Like you might want to retain your customer data for a specific number of months or years, and there might be some account information that you want to take, advantage of, and also make sure that it's backed up to a safe and secure location. So to do that, what Vault has is, when I go to a specific org here, of course, I can register the environment using this option. And the registration can be via OAuth or standard username, password, and security token as well. So once I have the org registered, I can create configuration templates. So with this particular configuration template, you can back up specific metadata and data. So for example, I was talking about emails earlier. So if you want to take a backup of only those email templates or actual emails, you can go ahead and specify that metadata type here, and then go ahead with your data backup as well. Maybe with respect to data, you want to retain your account and contact information. So you can do that and take a frequent backup as well. So you can be selective about what components in metadata type that you want to back up, and also you can be selective about what data you're backing up. So if it's account, I can go to the filters here. I can specify the probably the field name. Let's say name should contain so-and-so character, and all the records that satisfy this filter needs to be backed up to a specific location. So it's very, if you want to relate it to a specific solution, it's very similar to a data loader in the sense that we offer a filter option here. So you can be selective about the data backup here as well. So once you select only the account object, let's say I'm good with the data and metadata backup, so I give it a name. Let's call it maybe emails and account backup. And I want to make sure that I do an incremental backup every time. So obviously, the first time that I run the backup, we will see what metadata types are already present in your S3 or Azure blobs. Those are some examples of storage devices that we have in place. And if you have opted for incremental backup the first time, obviously there won't be any metadata or data that's already backed up. So we'll be running a full backup scenario. And earlier, Mike had asked the question about how frequently you can take backups. So this is where Vault will let you take a backup every 5 minutes, and also you can take a backup on a monthly schedule as well. But in this world, or in the last few years, we have seen that data changes or metadata changes within an organization, not just Salesforce or any other platforms that you use, it's tremendous. So maybe a monthly backup is not really an option anymore. You have to go with the daily backup. It depends on specific organization. So once you specify an interval here, let me do a monthly interval. I can go ahead and save this configuration so I can have a quick look at what backup I've taken in the form of metadata and data. And once this backup configuration template is stored, I can run this configuration on top of this, the org which I used to establish this template. So this is where the backups can be flexible. So you can perform a delta backup or a full backup. You can schedule it on a monthly basis or on a specific interval as well. So talking about backup, I'll just talk about a parallel situation here where Vault has the ability to offer ad hoc storage options. So I was talking about backing up your data to S3 or Azure blobs if need be, right? So it can be any of those environments, and we also offer multiple deployment models. Dean already talked about it. We offer a shared cloud environment, a dedicated cloud. If you want the dedicated cloud to be managed by us, we can do that as well, or it can be your own, maybe EC2 instance hosted in your network as well. So let's go ahead and initiate a backup here. So I'm going to be using the template that I just created here, emails and account backup. So I'll probably choose this template, get the details. I can see that there are no backups that are run previously. So I can initiate a backup right here. Let me choose the configuration, and I want to go with an incremental backup right here. So this particular backup option has it's making sure that we take an account backup for all the data records, and we also take a specific metadata into the backup environment. So post this, let's say we are doing it on a daily basis, right? But the data changes in our org are tremendous. Maybe let's say a user is making changes to records once every 10 minutes, but the backup is only being taken once every 6 hours, let's say. In that situation, like Dean mentioned previously, there can be intentional or unintentional loss of data. So you want to find out, to what extent of a data loss has occurred in that particular org. it might be intentional or unintentional. So for that, we have a feature called compare org, where you'll be able to compare the last backup that you have taken with the live environment setting. So for example, if I take a backup that was triggered probably a few hours back, I can do a live comparison here. And on a metadata basis and on a data basis, I can compare what exists in that backup and what doesn't exist in the org. So if I want to go to the custom field here, you can see that there is an object called GP test object, and there is a parent object. There is a lookup field to this parent object here. So this member exists in the org2 right here. So this is the org2 that I have. So I have this GP test object, and you can see that the field was deleted. So it points out that this field is present in the backup that I've already taken, but in the live org, I don't have that field anymore because it's deleted. So on a metadata level, we'll be able to see the differences, and also on a data level. So if I go to GP test object here, I can see that I've deleted 2 records. So if I go back to the org, I have the GPS tab where I have only 3 objects right here, or 3 records, I should say. And if I look at this backup that I had taken prior to the deletion of 2 other records, I had 5 here. So this deleted node is set to true for 2 of these records. So now I've found kind of a halfway point as to where I am with respect to the extent of data loss. I know that these 2 records have been deleted, and I know a metadata in the form of a custom field has been deleted as well. So how do I restore all these, right? To be able to restore only the differences to the target, you can straight away use or take advantage of this compare feature and simply select the record that needs to be restored. And coming to the metadata level, you can select that particular metadata itself. And what we will do here is, there is an option to directly restore. So if I go back to this one, so I'll select these 2 options, right? These are the data elements that I need to restore. So I have a restore option here. With the help of this option, I'll be able to directly move metadata and data into the org from which I've taken a backup. But this is probably one of the easiest ways to do so. And you might be wondering, what if I have parent-child dependencies for some of the data records that I need to take care of? Well, that's where we have the actual restoration feature itself. So in this particular option, we have something called Restore Now, where again, you take advantage of a backup always. So once you already have a backup in place for a production environment, then you have that as a source for your recovery or for a replicate operation in case you're doing a data seeding as well.
I think that's just a quick pause here because a question came in. I think it's a clarification, but you may have just answered it. The question came in, does Vault backup related entities, or do we need to specify individual objects? Second part is also, while restoring, how does Vault restore account and its related cases, for example?
Sure. So with respect to the related entities, yes, we take care of the parent-child dependencies, and I'm about to show you how it looks like as well. And for the second question, if we talk about accounts and cases, one of its dependent records, we take care of the IDs for you. So for example, if you talk about the account record, each record has an ID with Salesforce, right? So once you back it up, that particular record is temporarily deleted from the Salesforce environment. So when you do a restore, we maintain that record ID, and whenever you do the restore, we will be able to restore that account record. And again, you'll be choosing its appropriate child elements as well. So probably if I show it in the UI, it will be much clearer here. So I'll go to the UI, I'll go to the field that I have here. So I want to restore this metadata, which is the custom field itself. And if I go to the data element here, this is where I have the account, right? So if I look into the hierarchy for accounts, so under the child schema, you'll be able to see all the relationships. There we go. So here you have order, you have cases, attachments, and whatever child dependencies that you can think of for an account object. This is standard environment, but if you have your own custom objects which are child elements of accounts, you'll be able to see that in this view as well. And of course, this goes without saying, but if you go ahead and uncheck this particular opportunity product, then none of its child elements will be promoted or restored back into the Salesforce environment. So you can go ahead and cherry pick individual objects on the child level as well as on the parent level as well. But on the parent side, you can see there's only the account object reference. You don't have a parent above account that we are referring to at this stage. So I'm fine with with how the settings look like. So whatever objects are right here, I want to move them to the target, but also I want to make sure that I'm moving records from this particular object as well. So I noticed that I have 5 records, but only 3 records are present in the target. So if I want to restore the other 2, and if I want to find out what other records are missing, I can select this field from the change view option, and it will tell me what fields are here and what fields are not in the org. So from this view, let's say if it's this particular record and 0 that needs to be restored, I can trigger a quick restore of both data and metadata. And once this operation is complete, you'll be able to see all the 5 records populated right here. So you can see all the other 2 records just recovered back from the backup that we have taken.
One more question on this, Vignesh, to clarify. A question just came in. Is Vault backup searchable? For example, can I search for Vignesh in the backup taken and restore the accounts which match the search?
Sure. Actually, that's where our filters operation will help when it comes to a backup or a restore. So when you talk about backing up specific account records, you can take advantage of the actual filter to be able to take a backup of those specific records. So if the account name should be probably a vault or something like that, then you can specify the filter in the backup. So we talked about the 4 main features that Dean was talking about. We talked about synchronized recovery, system compliance, clean and swift recovery, also flexible backup as well. At last, we have something called a data stealing. So data stealing is quite common when you have a test environment in the picture, right? So let's say you have your application that's promoted successfully to a QA environment, and to be able to test the functionality of that custom application, you want some data from your production org. So to be able to take the backup, or rather take the dummy data from production instead of the live users data, a backup can be handy. So with the backup, the advantage of using a backup as the source instead of the production org is we consume less APIs because we are using a backup as a source and not an actual org. Because if you use an org, at the end of the day, you're making out some API calls and you're trying to retrieve records from it. But with a backup, it's straightforward. So let's go ahead and try to replicate here. So the backup that I have taken is in org2. So I'll go ahead and choose that backup here. And let's say I want to replicate the metadata and data into org1, which is my testing environment. So I can do a full replicate, or I can do a selective replicate as well. Same as the restore, where you can do a complete restore of a backup, or a selective restore where you pick up the specific metadata and data as well. So let's go with the selective replicate option. And here again, it's pretty much the same when it comes to the filters. So I can go ahead and select this metadata that I want to move to the target. And when it comes to data elements, I want to pick up the records from this object. Again, I'll be able to see all the child and the parent dependencies. So if I go ahead and view it in full screen, I can see all the multiple child level dependencies that I have. So I have all these 5 records. If you recall, these were the 5 records that were backed up previously. So I can do a select all here to be able to replicate this in another environment. And the replicate operation does not end right here. Once you select the data and metadata, you have something called field mapping. So, for those who are familiar with Data Loader Pro, they'll be very familiar with this option called field mapping, where you are able to actually take advantage of moving metadata elements from one environment to the other. So if I go ahead and search for a specific object, which we are trying to move from source to target, you can see that these are the source records or source fields that we have, created by ID, created date, ID, so on and so forth. So if you recall, we are trying to move this metadata member along with the data record. So by default, the destination IDs are not populated here. So once the replicate is complete, the order of replication is like this. You first move the metadata and then the data records associated with that particular metadata. That's how the replication is done, and that's the reason you're not able to find the destination IDs here. And also at last, you'll be able to see masking rules. So we were talking about privacy masking and why it's essential. It's essential to protect your PII or sensitive information. So if I have something like, let's say, an SSN or a tax ID, I don't want to just expose it into my testing environment. I want to mask it, maybe shuffle the characters or add a prefix, add a suffix. I want to do something to obfuscate the data and make sure that it's test ready in my QA or UAT environment, and then go ahead with my functional test. So for that, you can create your masking rule. So I get to select the object and the field type here. So for the object, it will be GP test object here. And the field type, let's choose a string. So the only field that satisfies this data type is the name field. So I go ahead and select that. And currently we have a masking style of prefix and suffix where you'll be able to add strings before or after the name string itself. But going forward, if you know about our other product called AutoRABIT, we have a data loader feature where we have multiple masking rules. So the plan is to kind of have all those masking rules involved as well. So that's where the shuffle, the random string generation, everything comes into play. So you can add that particular rule here. So let's say I want to just mask it with this value. So you can add multiple rules, one on top of each other, and go ahead with the replicate option. So that's with respect to data staging and also metadata staging. So like I said, metadata will be populated first, and then the data population comes into play, along with parent-child dependency. So Mike, do we have any questions?
Yeah, actually, we did. It's going back a little bit. It popped in for clarification. The earlier question about searching, the person clarified and said, not by using a filter. What I meant was, can I search for an account in your backup and then restore? The example, let's say I have 1 million accounts and they're all backed up, but I just want to restore a target account.
Got it. So that feature is currently not available within the product right now. The only reason we are kind of thinking about it is when you talk about millions of records, the search filter has to go through every record. So at this stage, we are considering how to maintain the performance of the application, but still be able to search for n number of records within that particular text. So I mean, to put it simply, we don't have that feature currently.
Thank you. And there's a few more questions. Are we at a point where we can?
Yes.
We can. Okay. Sure. Great. So I think you covered this, but just for clarification, can I back up only specific metadata or data elements instead of all types?
Yeah, and that's where we use the data or metadata configuration. So in the setup view, if you recall, this particular configuration only has specific data and metadata, not everything.
Right. Is there an archival strategy in place that moves data to a database?
At the moment, no, we don't have an archival strategy in place.
Okay.
We're building the logic for it, but as of today, the answer is no.
And is there, well, actually you covered this one. It rolled in a little late, so just to reiterate, is there a feature to compare last backup with current Salesforce environment?
Sure.
And I know you covered that. Could you
of course.
just review that?
Yeah. That's where the compare feature comes into play. So the latest backup that you've taken, let's say it's the second one, right? You can compare this backup with the live data or metadata within the Salesforce environment. And that's where we'll be able to pick up the differences from this comparison and move only or recover only those differences into the production environment.
Got it. One question that came in is there anything, does this work effectively with DX? And is there anything unique that we have to do if we're using Salesforce DX?
So to my knowledge, DX has all the metadata and data elements that's supported by the traditional batch API and metadata API. It has nothing different and nothing different. So this will work with DX just like it works with regular development or production parts.
Great. And I'm just going through the questions. I know you covered this, but it's important to reiterate. The question is, will the restore option bring back the Salesforce record IDs? I guess what they're asking is, if you do restore option, does it ensure that the Salesforce record IDs are maintained?
Sure. Actually, it's a question that can be answered in two different ways.
Sure.
So if a record is permanently deleted, let's say, if you want to try and restore that back, then Salesforce will, or rather, Vault will insert a new Salesforce record ID for that particular record. But if it's only temporarily deleted, let's say that record is in the recycle bin, it's not permanently deleted from Salesforce database, then we help you recover with the exact ID. But that's actually the behavior of Salesforce because record IDs are unique, right? If something's permanently deleted from the Salesforce database itself, when you want to recover it, it has to be a new ID. It cannot be the same as the previous record ID.
Got it. Thank you. Another question, does Vault work with shelled encryption Salesforce instance?
To my knowledge, I think it does. Probably she will be the best person to answer that. Sri, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you, Vignesh. Yes, we did test with shield encrypted orgs, and it does work.
Got it. Okay, thanks for answering that. Just looking through, looks like there's a lot of duplicate questions, which is good that we've answered. One person asked, can you just review again which data masking type is currently available in the product?
Sure. Yeah. Data masking type that's currently available is the prefix and the suffix. And we are planning to include the shuffle character or shuffling the characters, introducing the replace option, and also generating a random string. So those are the three different criteria or masking rules that we are planning to implement in the near future.
Great, thank you. And actually, that is it for the questions for today. Thank everybody for attending. If you have any further questions, please reach out to us. You can go to our website at AutoRABIT.com, or you can email us at info@AutoRABIT.com, and we will make sure that your question gets answered. We will send out a replay to this webinar in the next 48 hours. If you would like to review it or pass it along to anyone, please feel free to do so. So thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vignesh.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great day.